Hey guys, George here. I'm going to present to you what a man needs to do in 2026 to have optionality in the dating market. As you may know, the dating market is cooked, and there's a statistic that's out that suggests 80% of the women are chasing the top 10% of men. Now, instead of getting pissed off about it, you need to understand it and you need to work on becoming that guy in 2026. Now, this one here, God, that is not necessarily something that's going to give you optionality in the market, in the dating market. But what this is going to do, this is more for your eternal life and I guess your internal life whilst here on earth. But if you live in Australia or any other Western country, you will find that most of these countries are very secular. And a lot of the women, unfortunately, are more leaning towards the left, far left, the liberal, Marxist, feminists, atheists. So you as a man focusing on God, that isn't necessarily going to give you more options. In actual fact, you'll probably be, you'll probably be frowned upon. If you went to a bar or you went to a party and you were, professing your faith to a group of hot young ladies, they'll probably maybe laugh at you. But this here is the number one. Like, to be honest, our purpose here on earth, aside from if you're a young man wanting to find a wife, wanting to excel, wanting to, have status and wealth, the number one important thing is having a relationship with God and preparing for the next life. That's ultimately why we're here. And interestingly enough, I saw a clip. There was a guy interviewing Andrew Tate, and the guy said, "Andrew, what's our purpose here?" And Andrew said, "Our purpose is to learn." I don't necessarily agree with that. Even though I love Andrew Tate, I love, what he stands for. Okay, there are a few things I don't agree with, but pretty much 85% of what he says is real. All right. But this I disagree with him on. The purpose of life isn't to learn. The purpose of life is to have a relationship with God, worship God, and prepare for your eternal life. That's the purpose. But let's get back to becoming that guy 2026. So aside from this, number one, build your relationship with God. That's not necessarily going to get you optionality, but it is very important, number one. Number two, your health. I remember a very successful person said to me once, "George, don't worry about the money, worry about your health, because you might get all the money in the world, but imagine if you didn't have your health and you were in hospital, on a bed, on a drip for the rest of your life. What then? The money doesn't mean anything." The most important thing aside from God is your health. You have to look after yourself. That means looking after what you put in your mouth, looking after what you consume, looking after what you do with yourself, looking after, from a holistic point of view, your whole being. And that's your mind, body, and soul. So getting as healthy as you can possible. And that will actually help you in terms of optionality, because if you take care of yourself and your body's working properly, your testosterone's working properly, you're eating clean, you're drinking clean water, your skin looks good. When you do, venture out, women will pick up on that stuff. Women will tend to, move towards a man that is, the healthiest specimen out of the group. of men to choose from. So health is your number one priority, right? So not health. Fitness and getting lean. Now, I wouldn't say this is what I'm struggling with, but I'm trying to get to around 10, 12% body fat. I think at the moment I might be around the 14%, 15. So I've got a few kilos to lose, but I'm actually going to be in the near future helping men with this, the fitness and getting lean. But I'm using myself as the guinea pig. So getting lean, you'll be surprised as a man, once you do get lean and your features start popping, you start putting on clothes, you start looking better when you go out in public, you can wear tight fitted stuff and you look good. The name of the game is to look athletic. Majority of women, see a lot of guys when they hit 18, they want to jump on the gas or they want to jump on peptides and get like Jay Cutler. That's actually very non-attractive to a lot of women. Now, I'm not sure where you are in the world, but in Australia, we have AFL football. Your ideal, I guess, body type would be to replicate a typical AFL player. So they're not big and muscly, they're lean, slender, and athletic. That there is the epitome of I guess, health and the epitome of what most women are attracted to. If you're a young guy and you start hitting the gas and you become like a bodybuilder type of guy, the only people that are going to compliment you or come up to you will probably be other guys. But the name of the game is to get lean, get to about 10, 12% body fat. Now, you don't need to be 4%. That's very difficult to obtain and very difficult to maintain as well. But you want to be around the 10% sort of 10% mark, all right? You want to have visible abs. You want to, when you go to the beach, people can tell that you've trained. For me, I have my bloodline is Anatolius Caucasus. So if you have a look at the flag behind me, that's where I'm originally from, Pontos. But I reckon my bloodline stems from around the Georgian sort of region, because I have had a few people tell me that I don't look typical Greek. I'm also look a bit Georgian. But anyway, it doesn't matter about my bloodline. But what I'm saying is, as a if you're Greek or Italian, most of us men are gonna have trouble with our midsection, and that's the most difficult to get off. So for me, I've just recently started dieting pretty, I guess, strict now, and I just have to persevere and get my meals in and push through the hunger and try and get to about 10 to 12% body fat. You don't really typically need to get anything lower than that. You don't need to be stage ready and be 8%. 10, 12% is just enough so your abs are showing, So, and it is difficult. I'm not going to lie. You have to have, most of it is diet. And I've had about 10 plus years experience, and I have been pretty lean before. But if you are wanting to get some help on not only this, but some of these other things, send me a DM on my Instagram. It's just GeorgeDemo_, and we can have a discussion about how I can help you achieve, getting lean and some of these other things as well. Wealth and status. Now look, wealth and status, you have to understand from a female biological point of view, they were built to seek a man that can provide and that has resources. This is inbuilt into female nature. So back in ancient times, the men who were the conquerors ended up getting the women, because from a woman's point of view, when she does eventually get pregnant, she needs to ensure that her offspring is taken care of. So that is, a man with combat ability that can provide and that has resources. This is inbuilt in female nature, pretty much in their DNA. Now, what's the modern version of that? So what's the modern version of, say, an Achilles or Alexander the Great or Genghis Khan? It's the man you see driving on a Saturday or Sunday morning in his McLaren or Lambo. Like, he's reached the epitome, if it's all legit, he's reached the epitome of success. He's got money freedom, time freedom. That there is what every man should be striving for. Now, is every man going to be able to achieve that? Of course not. But it is something you need to be striving for, because this does, and I'm sick of people saying that women don't care about that stuff, that there will unlock the most optionality for you. But this comes with a bit of a warning, a bit of a disclaimer. The last thing you'd want to do is have a woman just be with you for that. Now, I know inherently women are wanting a man with wealth and status. I understand that. But what you don't want is for you to, I guess in the early stages, flaunt that stuff, and a woman is just with you for that. I don't know, there's a bit of a gray area there, because at one point you do need the wealth and status to attract them, but then where do you go to ensure that she's with you for you and not for your wealth and status? I'm still trying to figure that out. But this will ultimately unlock the most optionality for you. But you do have to be careful with it. But like I keep saying to people, especially now in 2026, now the reason why I say that is because the average woman now, there's an imbalance in terms of the amount of attention she's getting now compared to what she was getting in the 1980s. Like now, the average woman, they did an experiment where they got a male model, all right? And then they got an average looking woman who was actually overweight. And they put both of them on the Tinder platform, and they wanted to see, out of the male model who was good looking, fitness, had status, and the average like no name woman who was actually overweight, who would get more matches? And do you know, surprisingly, the woman actually got more matches than the man. So what that tells us is the amount of attention that average women are getting, let alone the hot ones, is astronomical. It's very difficult nowadays to compete with, like, what I'm trying to say is, back in the 1980s, all right, if you're an average chick or if you're a pretty girl, you would have maybe between 10 to 20 guys to choose from in your hometown. Now they've got between 10,000 and 20,000 men, like no joke, around the world hitting them up, especially if they're pretty. So what kind of guy are you becoming in order to stand out of all those people? This is the separator. And like so many times people say to me, "Oh, nah, George, girls don't care about wealth and status. Just be yourself." The only person telling you to just be yourself would be your mother or father. But that's not how reality works. That's not what women respond to. And the thing about the wealth and status, a lot of people just think you just get wealthy and have status. It's the process you have to undergo to get to that. Do you understand? Like, not everyone is going to be able to achieve this. But what's more important is the person you become getting to that. What kind of man do you know? Look, except for some of those, American influencers on Kick and those streamers that just get famous out of nowhere. But I'm talking like 99% of the other population. to get wealthy and status, man, you have to be disciplined. You have to be a savage. You have to be a weapon. And I'm talking like in all realms of manhood. You have to be an exceptional person to get to that level in this day and age. And that's what's going to, obviously, these things here, communication, confidence, and competence, that all ties in with that. But I'll get to that in a minute. So wealth and status we covered. All right, understanding female nature. This is another powerful thing as well, because let's just say you do become wealthy and you have status. If you don't understand female nature, understand their cues, bro, you're going to get walked all over. So when I say understand female nature, I suggest you watch Richard Cooper, Corey Wayne, Myron Gaines, Andrew Tate, yes, but you got to be very selective with which, because he does a lot of podcasts about a lot of things. You have to get to the ones that he specifically talks about female nature. But that will give you a good understanding of how women in 2026 are operating at the moment. And when you do meet a woman, you need to be able to spot red flags quick, and how they treat you. And you got to be careful not to be a simp as well. Because this, ultimately, like the person you end up marrying will either make or break you. I've heard some crazy stories of men not understanding female nature, them getting into relationship/marriage with the wrong woman, then 5-10 years later, the empire they built comes crumbling down because she ends up leaving. She takes half his stuff. And I know like real stories as well, not just like if you watch Rich Cooper, he'll go through crazy stories, but these are stories that I actually know of personally through like very good, sources. Communication, confidence, competent. I would sort of pair them all together. So communication, if you are in the dating market and you do spot a woman, you have to have the confidence, number one, to go up to her, but number two, it all boils down to your communication. Women are always looking for an excuse to disqualify a guy. So most men don't have the confidence to go up to women like in the street during the day, let alone in a nightclub or a bar. So that there you have to work on. And the only way to work on that is literally by doing it. There's no book you're going to read that's going to help you become confident. Confidence comes by taking action. You have to take action. And of course, when you do approach, how do you communicate? And not just approaching, just communication in general. And I'm talking from you're taking a girl out on a date, you're in a business meeting, you're cold calling someone, you're at the bank, you're just whatever, you're in a group setting. How you communicate is how people perceive you. Do you have good vocabulary? Or do you sound like a goose? Competent. Women love a man that's competent. Andrew Tate was saying in one of his podcasts that there was this, I don't know who it was, it might have been some model, but she said to him, Andrew, I love when I'm with you because everything just gets sorted. From the private jet to when they land, to the limo, to the hotel, everything's sorted. Being competent, all of these things are important. This is the thing, like in 2026, you have to be everything. And not only that, there's another list I want to go through as well. And this is just, I guess these are the foundations, but then there's another layer to it, which is, women are looking for a guy that's tall, good looking, you know, earns 6 figures, I guess, which, you know, comes into the wealth, dresses good, smells good, has good hygiene. There's so many things now that a man has to be in order to stand out amongst all the other men that are going after the girl that you want. There's the competition nowadays is crazy. And the thing is as well, like if you think for a second, you know, you're at a bar or you're at a party and you see a good looking girl and you go up to her, you might get her number. If you think for a second that you're the only guy sort of talking to her, you got rocks in your head. She would at least have, and not to say that there's anything wrong with what she's doing. She's not doing anything. Like she might be a good girl. I'm not saying she's not. But the amount of other men going for her, that's your competition. So the question you have to ask yourself is, who are you becoming? Who are you becoming in 2026? Again, like I said, if you need any help with any of these things, send me a DM on my Instagram, GeorgeDemo_, and we can have a chat about how I can help you achieve these things.